Subchapter 2.4. That night, Rick lay awake in bed with the word echoing in his overactive mind. Pirates. QR had spoken aloud the word that Rick was dodging. That was the one element in their mutual tragedies that linked Rick and QR. As the shock of losing Sarah in the hands of pirates subsided and morphed into resentment, a new purpose fought to rise to the surface within him. Instead of sleep, Rick found himself itching for a fight, but he had to temper himself as his appointment with the IPS agents neared. He rose the next morning, irritable but in control of himself. He was careful not to raise his voice to QR or misdirect his frustration and anger toward his host. QR led Rick to the diner across town, a 5-minute walk. Rick carried his backpack full of money with him, as he did not trust the level of security at the boarding house. They stopped at the front steps of a modest roadside structure with a sign over the entrance that read, Sully's Diner. "Your boss won't mind if I hang out here for a few hours?" Rick asked. "He won't care. Don't rush him and don't make a scene. He don't like drama." "Fair enough." Having arrived an hour before opening, Rick and QR paced around the building to the back door. Sully was prepping the kitchen for breakfast when the two men entered. A large, heavy man in his 60s, Sully was sympathetic to Rick's situation and offered to make him and QR breakfast, a service that did not go unthanked by Rick. After breakfast, Rick asked QR for a pen and paper. He had no idea when IPS was showing up and thought to spend this time getting prepared. Rick sat at a booth by the window, a cup of coffee to one side, his backpack close beside him. From memory, Rick drew the insignia he had seen on the ship's hull that had attacked him. He was unsure of the skull and horns, so he drew them the best he could. But the inverted crescent moon was clear in his mind. Rick was working on the moon part when QR looked over his shoulder. "What's that?" he asked, pointing at the drawing. "I saw it on the ship that attacked me," Rick said, letting slip a trace of bitterness he had been harboring. "Pirates, just as I thought." "How do you know?" "I've seen something like that before. A little different, though. But that's pirate, all right." Rick felt the fury rising inside him once again. "What I'd do to track him down," he muttered. "I can help. I can hack into any system in the galaxy. Information. That's what you need." Rick recognized the danger of letting loose the fury and how that course of action always led to weakness and compromise. He slapped a lid on it, kept the fire down, and saved it for another time when he was face to face with the bastards responsible for tearing Sarah from his side. Rick took a breath. "Stay out of trouble. That's what I need. IPS is on its way, and I gotta look like a victim here." A thought came to QR. He sat down across from Rick. "What kind of ship you had?" he asked. "Parthenia-class light freighter." "Those are the ones with the cargo containers on the sides." "That's right." QR lowered his voice. "Hey, were you transporting passengers? You know, on the sly?" "You can trust me." Rick was quick to answer. "No, that's illegal. A lot of people get here that way. The freighter pilots smuggle them in. Good side business, I hear." "Good way to end up in jail." "But people are desperate to get away from the provenance. They pay big money to get here. It's a free colony." "You like it here?" "It's great. Might retire here someday. But I want my ship back. It's one of a kind. Built it up myself." "Then go find it. Get it back." "I can't," QR said, embarrassed. "I don't have the resources. Know what I mean?" "You're broke." QR looked away, unable to keep eye contact. "Something like that, yes." "Sorry, can't help you there." Rick rested a hand on his backpack. QR thought for a second. An idea came to him. He went into his pocket and pulled out his stone-sized computer. "Look," he said, setting the computer on the table. "Let me show you something." QR tapped his computer, and a projection screen leaped up from it. He tapped and swiped this way and that. "What's your full name?" QR asked, his eyes fixed on the computer screen. "Richard Lee McCabe. And the name of your ship? Solar Endeavor. QR tapped away as the data flashed by on the screen. One page of information stopped before QR. He studied it. Rick leaned in, staring. What's that? 6 security levels deep in the mainframe of interplanetary security, QR said in a simple, casual tone. Looks like a duty roster. Rick's eyes widened with surprise. You hacked into IPS? Easy. I see their agents should be here any time now. Rick was still reeling from the speed at which QR had pierced IPS's data protection protocols and firewalls. You got into IPS with that? That little thing? I'm good. QR studied the screen a bit more. The SAC, the special agent in charge, who's coming to see you, is Special Agent Catherine Mercer. Catherine Mercer, Rick repeated, remembering the name. Be careful. There's a notation here instructing her to check for evidence of human trafficking. A movement outside the window caught QR's attention. He saw 4 figures approaching, which prompted him to shut down the computer and jump from his seat, dropping the computer in his pocket. Break time's over, QR said with no little urgency. Back to work. Wait, Rick said, not done with him. He had more questions for this talented Ubinian hacker. QR jumped to his broom, which he had left against the wall. He pushed the broom across the floor, ignoring Rick as he made his way to the other side of the room. 3 males and 1 female entered the diner. They wore casual business clothes, black pants and jackets, and white shirts, professional but not too formal. Rick noticed the gold badges on their belts and the sidearms in their holsters. Startled at the visitor's sudden appearance, Rick froze in an attitude of a half-turn toward the door, half out of his seat. He was quick to calm himself and relax. Settle down. The 4 persons stood just inside the entryway and looked over the interior. The woman locked her eyes on Rick, and Rick locked eyes on her. He stared at her as she spoke a few words to her companions. The 3 men departed, stepping out the door. Rick held his stare at her as she approached his booth, unable to pull his eyes off her. Something odd about this woman, something not quite right. Rick McCabe, she said, standing at his booth, looking down at him. Yes. I'm Special Agent Catherine Mercer of Interplanetary Security. You filed a report about an attack on your ship. Rick glanced at QR across the room, sweeping. His appraisal of QR shot up to new levels. Yes, Rick said, returning to Catherine. That was me. His eyes followed the graceful, thin lines that traced across the visible parts of her body, the several elegant arcs that curved from her temples to her cheeks, down her neck, and across her hands and wrists. I am here to interview you, Catherine said. Would you mind if I sat down? Have a seat. Catherine took a chair and sat at the booth close to Rick. Rick continued to stare. Her mahogany brown hair was pulled back into a tight bun. But her eyes were hypnotic, brown with hints of blue and green. He had never seen eyes quite like those before. The fact that he was staring at something other than a live human being sank into him. An android. He was no stranger to androids, as he had encountered them before by the hundreds, but this one fascinated him. He caught himself staring. I'm sorry, Rick said with an embarrassed half-smile. He was unsure of his words. I wasn't expecting an android. Yeah, usually I see androids mopping floors or mowing the lawn. This is different. If you have a problem with an android in a position of authority, I am more than willing to provide a human replacement to accommodate you. If not, may we proceed with the interview? The sudden memory of Sarah losing her tourist guide job to an android knifed through Rick. But he had to keep a level head, at least for now. He straightened in his seat. Oh, yeah, sure. No problem. Totally okay with it. Catherine went right to work. Mr. McCabe, this attack occurred 2 days ago? That's right. Your ship is a Parthenia-class light freighter? Yes. What was your cargo? Rick was ready for this question. He spent a moment or two to look convincing, searching his memory. Let's see. Building supplies, hardware, some home goods, I believe, some foodstuffs. There should be a complete manifest on the bridge. I'll look at it later. How many were in your crew? She must have seen the bridge, Rick thought. This Agent Mercer missed nothing. Just my wife and I, Rick said. The thought of Sarah brought a dark shadow over his face. He relived the incident in a flash. They just sliced it right off. Sarah was in the main part of the ship. They took her along with the rest of the ship. Rick sank in his seat. He rubbed his head and eyes. Catherine extended her right hand over the table, palm up. A flicker of light coalesced into an image of Sarah's face over the palm of her hand. Is this Sarah? Catherine asked. Rick stared at Sarah's face for much longer than needed. A million thoughts rushed through his troubled mind, seeking a voice. Yeah. He thought of saying more, but could only stare at her face, feeling his spirit turn down a dark hole. He wanted to tell Catherine all about her, how he and Sarah had met at one of the ring casinos above Saturn. He wanted to tell her of all the women he had known, of which there were scores. Sarah was the only one who understood him, how he operated and thought. Catherine shut down the projection over her hand, and Sarah's image vanished. She had sensed his detachment and needed to bring him back to center. Her voice remained cold and businesslike. According to your report, an unidentified ship dropped out of hyperspace next to yours, hit you with an EMP pulse, seized your ship with arms, and cut off your bridge section. Yeah, just like that. Catherine's lack of solace put an edge on his voice. She had just shown him an image of Sarah. She saw his emotional reaction to seeing her face, and like flipping a switch, this android was back to the report, lacking even a trace of sympathy. Look, I don't care about this ship, he growled. Sarah is 4 months pregnant. You gotta find her. We'll do our best, Catherine said in a flat, inflectionless tone. That's not good enough. They've already got a 2-day head start on you. I understand this is a difficult— Understand? You understand? You've never lost anyone close to you. How could you understand? You're a machine. Catherine stared at him but kept silent. Have you ever had someone taken away from you, Agent Mercer? Rick asked, sure that he had her cornered. Someone close? Catherine was careful to keep up the appearance, the cold stare with her beautiful but unfeeling eyes. But a trace of softness crossed those taciturn eyes. She hesitated, but let slip an opening to her heart that she had sworn to keep closed. Would it surprise you if I answered, yes? Yeah, it kinda would. Then perhaps on that common ground, Catherine said, the coldness returning. May we dispense with the prejudice and continue this interview? Rick did not answer. He was struck silent by the thought of their common ground. Or should I ask again if you'd like a human replacement? Catherine went on. Trust me when I say it will not hurt my feelings in the slightest. You have no feelings. Catherine gave no answer, only a slight tilt of her head and the faintest, barely perceptible smile that scarcely tugged at one corner of her mouth. Rick stared at her, unsure if the android sitting at his table was mocking him or revealing that she indeed had feelings. Absurd. Rick tossed a nod at her. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Mr. McCabe, were any passengers on board your ship at the time of the attack, not counting you and your wife? Rick shook his head. No, it was just Sarah and me. We had no crew. From across the room, QR turned as he swept, watching Rick and Catherine. Rick forced all his thoughts on Sarah and off the lost passengers to maintain his facade. He was unsure how perceptive this android was. You do understand that transporting passengers to Aranae violates provenance regulations, Catherine said. I know the regulations. Catherine studied Rick for a long moment. She noticed the backpack at Rick's side, the bag he kept close to his side. Catherine pointed at the pack. If you please, your backpack? Huh? Rick said, startled. Well, I don't think. In the blink of an eye, Catherine snatched the pack from Rick's side. Her arm was a blur of movement. Before he could react, Rick stared at his pack in Catherine's hands. He grabbed a fistful of its side material to pull it back, but froze. His instincts compelled him to yank it out of her hands, to protect it. But the look in the android's eyes caused him to rethink that impulse. She was looking for him to resist her. Give her something to confirm her suspicions. Rick released the pack and withdrew his hand. Catherine stared at Rick for a moment, then opened the pack, reached in, and pulled out a handful of metal plates. She looked them over. Gold, silver, platinum, she said, studying them. She looked at Rick. That's a lot of money to carry around, Mr. McCabe. Rick thought fast. A little investment in precious metals. I hear it's a seller's market on Aranae. Catherine gazed at Rick, turning her thoughts over in her nets. She considered her choices, where to go from here and what action to take. But instead, she tossed the gold and silver back into the pack and pushed it back to Rick. Good luck with that. Rick took the pack and returned it to his side, wanting to change the subject. He remembered his drawing and picked it up. Look, I saw this symbol on the side of their ship. Rick showed the drawing to Catherine. Any idea what it is? Catherine took one quick look at it. It is the Rusla Darshuk. The what? Rick knew the Rusla Darshuk, just as he knew Urso Bausch. But in this situation facing an android cop, the appearance of ignorance was an advantage. Rusla Darshuk. They are a pirate clan based on Dukas, one of Nabu's syndicates. While Rick was playing ignorant regarding the names of pirate clans, Catherine wondered why he was playing ignorant. She had read his file and knew that he was a Space Force veteran and would have known about pirates. No matter, let him be as ignorant as he wants. And Nabu is... Rick asked, searching her to see if she had a deeper knowledge of the pirates than he. The Kingpin. He has 6 pirate clans working under him in a criminal organization called Black Sun. The Rusla Darshuk's specialty is the slave trade. Slaves, Rick echoed. He knew it, but Catherine's confirmation made his heart sink. My question to you is, why would a pirate clan specializing in the slave trade target a freighter that wasn't carrying any passengers? Go ask them. Catherine studied Rick's face. Not much to read there. Tell me more about the ship that attacked you, she said. Large, bigger than mine, kinda brownish-red in color. It looked like a passenger transport, a cruise ship, but they made changes to it. How so? Down the sides of the hull, both sides, there were these crane-like things. That's what it used to grab the Endeavor. I saw it when they pulled away before going to hyperspace. They were like fingers, like a hand. That's how they took my ship. Rick demonstrated by grabbing his left wrist with his right hand. Any idea what that was? A modified cruiser. And then it had some kind of weapon, a white-hot armature of some kind. They used it to cut off the bridge, like a knife. So when the effects of the EMP wore off, you would not be able to put up a resistance from the bridge, or send distress signals that could be traced back to the ship. Just cut it off and keep the rest with no worries. Clever bastards. Catherine rose from her seat. Mr. McCabe, I will now inspect the bridge section from your ship. Wait here. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back soon. Catherine turned to head out. Hold on, Rick said, stopping her. One thought had kept returning, nagging at him. Catherine stopped and looked back at him. I was wondering. Rick held his gaze on her. Yes? Who was it? This someone of yours, who was taken from you. Who? Catherine's eyes remained fixed on Rick. For a moment, she said nothing. "Pirates?" he asked. After another moment of thought, Catherine answered with the tiniest jerk of her head, a mere twitch to the left and back to center. A trace of the word no flew across her lips, though she made no sound, not so much as a whisper. But Rick caught it. She said no. The android communicated to him on a personal level, though the communication was a single word and spoken silently. If not pirates, then who? He asked. With an abrupt change of direction, Catherine stiffened with renewed purpose, recalling the words she had spoken to Instructor Han, that she was more machine than human. Her words were cold. "I am here on your case, Mr. McCabe, not mine." Catherine turned and marched out. Rick watched her through the window as she stopped to speak with her associates out front. He was so focused on Catherine that he did not notice QR's approach. "Hear that?" QR said in a quiet tone. "She's on to ya." "I figured that," Rick said, his eyes still on Catherine. In the next moment, Catherine glanced back at the diner, and their eyes met and locked on together for a mere second. How could an android, a walking, talking computer, have close personal relationships? Rick turned his eyes away in a self-conscious move, regretting he had made her a distraction. "What are you gonna do?" QR asked. Rick shook his head to clear it of the android-induced fog. He focused on the reason he was on Aranae in the first place. "Before our communications were cut," he said, "I made a promise to Sarah. I told her I'd find her. Whatever it takes, I'll find her." Rick's voice had returned to its previous resoluteness. "You're going after her?" "Well, I ain't sitting around here and wait for RoboCop to come back and lock me up." Rick rose to his feet. He was done playing the victim, the pitiful put-upon victim. He had a clear view of his identity, and that did not include being anyone's victim. "I'm getting Sarah back," he said with resolve. QR stepped forward and said with equal determination, "And Rapana." Rick looked at him. "You with me?" "Count me in," QR said with a nod. "You sure you want to do that? Once we step out that door, we're wanted men. Both of us." "I never back down from a good challenge, especially when Rapana is on the line." Rick glanced out the window and noticed that Catherine had gone, leaving 2 agents behind to keep watch. He kept his voice down low. "Okay, Techie," he said. "You're in. You help me find Sarah, I'll help you find Rapana. But the first thing we're gonna need is a ship, a fast one. There's a good used market in Evergreen City just down the hill. Pay cash, no questions asked." "I like it." QR lowered his voice. "But what about, the funds?" "It's covered," Rick said. He silently thanked Sarah for storing the backpack with the passenger fares in the safe on the bridge instead of in storage in the stern of the Endeavor. To find Sarah, the venture will take money, and it will not be cheap. Relieved, QR felt a great weight lift from his shoulders. "Thanks, man." "There's something else we're gonna need," Rick said, thinking ahead. "What?" "Guns. Lots of them." "I know a guy." Rick gave it some thought. Already from the get-go, they were facing a sizable obstacle: how to slip away from the diner unopposed. Catherine had left behind 2 agents to keep watch. He was certain that he had come under her suspicion and recalled her words with clarity. "Wait here. Don't go anywhere." One agent was standing near the diner's front entrance. When they checked the back door, Rick was not surprised to see the second leaning against a tree nearby. "Yeah, she's got the other guy watching the back," Rick said, peering out through a crack of the partially open door. "But I can take him." "Take him?" "Take him out. Drop him." Rick went for the door, swinging it open to run out. QR grabbed him by the arm, pulling him back. "Hold on, Captain Bolsey. Not so fast." "Captain Bolsey?" A military leader made famous by his suicidal charge on an enemy stronghold. His name is a metaphor for someone who rushes into a situation without giving it much thought. You saying I don't know what I'm doing? QR pulled out his stone-sized computer from his pocket. You know exactly what you're doing, and that's what worries me. QR tapped away at his computer. I used to command covert assault teams, you know, Rick countered. There are times when a situation calls for a frontal assault. This is not one of them. We need to get away without making more enemies in the process. Allow me to offer a suggestion. Go ahead. Those agents have the ground covered front and back. We go up. Up? Think in 3 dimensions. Up. Catherine paced around the severed bridge section from the Solar Endeavor with Agent Dow following her. She studied the exterior, paying particular attention to the damage caused by its confrontation with the pirate vessel. The twisted and melted alloy bulkheads, inner and outer hull where it had been attached to the rest of the ship, bore witness to the violence of the unprovoked attack. As she stepped around the bridge, Catherine assigned a portion of her neural processes to analyze the ship's remains. While studying the wreckage, she thought about Rick and his curiosity about Mercer, her father. He had nearly disarmed her and almost caused her to break her vow. He had shaken her, and in the year and a half that followed her graduation from Camp Torres, Catherine faithfully guided her steps by the oath she had taken in the gym that she was a machine and nothing more. She would not connect with humans on their emotional level. But not one person in that whole space of time had ever asked her one question regarding her family, not one hint of curiosity or glimmer of interest in those people she once held dear. Not even John Fox asked about Dr. Mercer, and other people never asked her about John Fox. Perhaps because she was an artificial intelligence, that innocent prejudice might explain their indifference. After all, androids had no families, not real ones. They had owners, not fathers or mothers, not brothers or sisters. Catherine found herself disliking this Rick McCabe as he perceived her weakness and tried to exploit it. She shut down that section of her neural processes and focused on the ship fragment before her. The door to the bridge lay open before Catherine. She pulled herself up and in through the doorway with the other agent following, carrying a portable power unit. Inside, Catherine paused to study the interior. She gave the bridge a visual sweep, checking for anything out of the ordinary, any anomalies. She told Dow to plug in. She wanted that power as soon as possible. He went to work and found an input. Catherine tapped a few controls on the console. A moment later, computers sputtered to life and lights glowed, feeble at first, then growing in strength. A low hum emanated from the control board. Visual emitters struggled to project the monitors above the console, but some managed to throw up chaotic flashes of random patterns, numbers, words, and images. Catherine's hand skimmed over the console, then stopped on one panel. She focused in, connecting with the computer. Access, Catherine said to the computer under her fingers. The flashing bedlam on the monitors settled into a visual peacefulness. Request data transfer. Comply. Wren spoke in a soft, steady, unassuming feminine voice. Unauthorized user, she said. Access denied. User is authorized by Interplanetary Security. Special Agent Catherine Mercer, badge number 2505861. Check credentials and comply. A moment passed as Wren realized who she was dealing with. Access granted, she said. Proceed with data transfer. Lights and images flashed on the monitors as Wren's databanks rushed into Catherine. Rick and QR crouched behind the chimneys above the kitchen out of eyesight of the two agents on the ground. From the flat rooftop above Sully's diner, Rick gazed at Aranae's deep azure sky overhead. QR checked his pocket computer. Almost here, QR said. And who's driving? I am. By remote. The breeze carried a distant humming hissing growing louder. QR peeked above the edge of the roof. Ah, here it is, my hopper. QR's hopper, a small two-manned vehicle, kicked up dust as it rushed toward Sully's diner. The craft ran autonomously with no driver or passenger. QR tapped his computer as the hopper neared. The vehicle leaped upward and, a moment later, hovered before Rick and QR on the rooftop. QR sprang into the front seat behind the controls. Rick needed no prompt from QR and jumped into the seat behind him. The hopper bounded from the diner's rooftop and dived down to street level, hovering over the pavement. The two agents stared at the machine as it sped away. At the same time when Rick and QR had fled the diner, Catherine was making her way out of the bridge through the open doorway, followed by Agent Dow. They hopped down to the mossy ground. "Make arrangements to have this hauled to salvage," Catherine said. "Yes, ma'am." Catherine walked on, leaving Dow behind to follow her orders. She headed for Sully's diner down the road, a 10-minute walk, and took advantage of the time to update IPS headquarters. "Mercer to HQ, come in," she said through her internal transmitter. A female voice responded immediately, heard only by Catherine in her head. "This is IPS dispatch. Go ahead, Catherine." "I've completed my inspection of the ship fragment and my interview with McCabe," Catherine said as she walked. "I've found no revealing data from the bridge section or the ship's computer. All seems to be in compliance with regulations." "And the interview?" "I do believe McCabe that his ship was attacked. His cargo, along with his wife, was plundered by Ruzla Dar Shuk and is now in their possession. However..." "Yes?" "I detected deception by McCabe when asked about passengers. I believe he may have been smuggling passengers in his cargo containers. We'll need further investigation for confirmation." "I can answer that for you. Not more than 20 minutes ago, one of our ships found the wreckage of the Solar Endeavor on an asteroid not too far from the scene of the attack." Catherine came to a sudden halt. "Ah, excellent. Was anything found?" "They're still inspecting the wreckage and containers, but so far, what they've found showed signs of forced entry, but most of the cargo was left behind." "Any bodies?" "No bodies, but drones found evidence of human occupation in the containers. Toilet facilities, for example." Catherine resumed her walk to Sully's, but at a quickened pace. "Passengers," she said. "I have probable cause to arrest Rick McCabe. Do you concur? I will relay your status to the director. Proceed to apprehend McCabe at your discretion and place him into custody." "Understood. Mercer out." From her internal transmitter, Catherine switched frequencies. "Willis, Sanchez?" One of the agents who had been monitoring the diner spoke up. "Willis here," he said. "Detain McCabe at once. I will be there shortly." "Catherine, you'd better make it quick." "Why? What's going on?" "It didn't cost me a thing," QR said as they raced across an open meadow. He went on with how he had found the hopper in a scrap heap just outside of town. It was utterly broken down, non-functional, bound to be recycled into a park bench or perhaps siding for a spider corral. QR made an offer to the junkyard's proprietor. He would increase the office computer's performance by at least 20% in exchange for the broken-down hopper. After QR had kept up his side of the trade, he had the hopper hauled to his place, convinced he had gotten the better part of the deal. QR spent an hour of work on the hopper before he got it running again. "You'll have to sell it when we get the new ship," Rick pointed out. "Yeah, I'll miss it, but for Rapana's sake, and Sarah's, I am willing to part with it." Catherine pushed through the double doors of Sully's diner and strode up to the two agents standing by the counter. She looked around the room for any sign of Rick. "Where is he?" she asked. "Took off with the custodian," Willis said. "What? The custodian?" "That's what the manager told us." Catherine looked to the window between the dining room and kitchen. She stepped up to it, her voice loud and clear. "Manager! Manager!" a voice grumbled from somewhere in the kitchen. I'm coming. Sully shuffled through the door, taking his time. He made his way toward Catherine and the two agents. His lack of urgency prompted Catherine to tighten her jaw. "Manager, I need to talk to you at once concerning an urgent matter." "I'm coming," Sully said, maintaining his deliberate pace. Don't get your panties in a bunch. Androids do not wear undergarments. You're telling me. Catherine ignored Sully's coarse remarks. Where is the man that was sitting here? When you find out, let me know. My busboy just quit on me and off they went. What is your busboy's name? QR. QR? Some alien name, don't ask. Did you hear them say anything? No, except something about picking up the guy's wife, whatever that meant. Catherine processed that. Dukas, she said with certainty. She marched for the door. Let's go. Catherine pushed through the door and stepped into the Aranaean air, the two agents close behind. He's going after his wife, Catherine said. She began a new transmission. Mercer to HQ. HQ dispatch, go ahead. The same voice as before. HQ, McCabe has escaped, Catherine said. Repeat, McCabe has escaped. He left with one of the locals before we had a chance to hold him. I have reason to believe he may be attempting to recover his wife on Dukas. Request permission to engage in pursuit. Stand by. A moment passed. Catherine stared at the scenery before her, but her mind was elsewhere. She discovered new heights of irritation with this McCabe guy with each passing second. Can't believe this, Catherine muttered, waiting for the word from HQ. Permission granted, Agent Mercer, HQ returned. Suspend investigation on Solar Endeavor. Pursue and apprehend. Rick McCabe is now listed as a wanted fugitive on the run.